All right, so how to remove and replace individual buttons on an Audi B7 A4 S4 RS4 climate control unit. You can see on mine I have the all classic kind of rubbed off blue, rubbed off red temperature buttons. I have some nicks and scratches on my defrosters here, but the rest of my unit's in pretty good shape. So any of the units you can buy online are probably in worse shape than this. Dinged up, scratched up all around. So you might find yourself in a situation where you just want to replace individual buttons. In that case, we're going to start by removing your head unit. In this case, mine's going to slide right out because I have an aftermarket head unit. However, to remove this, I'm sure there's plenty of other videos. There's 4 little slots in the stock one, here, 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 and here, and you're going to stick in radio removal keys to then slide that out. So let me take this out first. So in this case, mine's just slides right out. I recommend putting a little towel or something soft on top of your shifter, all your trim, so it doesn't get scraped up. So I'm just going to pull that out. Put that right there. Next, let's get this out of the way. So disconnect your wires on the back. On the stock head unit, if you can see it, there's this large little adapter, and you can unplug straight from there. Or on the head unit, I'm just going to remove the wires straight from the head unit here. Now once that's removed, you can just set it to the side. It's going to give you a bit easier access here to the climate control panel. So now in this case, this climate panel is just going to slide right out. So kind of get your fingers. Be careful not to scratch the sides. It is very close on both sides. So just kind of inch it ever so slightly. Give it a little lift. Be careful. It will need to put my camera down to do this. It's the benefit of a manual. Use that. So slide that out carefully. And now I have it disconnected. Now you can see behind it, there's just a few plugs. We're going to disconnect all of those, obviously. So the one on the right, you can see there's these 2 things on each side. Just going to push both of them in, pull out. This one here, there's a clip you're going to push in on. And then this one has another clip. This one I'm going to push down on that clip. Same thing there. I'm going to push down on that, and then it'll slide right out. So here's my old climate panel. Brought it out here onto the table to work on easier. It's good to have a mini set of electronics, drivers. In this case, we're going to have to remove all of these. These are Torx, and have a couple hex head. These are for the heated seat rollers. And then once we get to the inside, you'll see this is the new one, which I've already taken apart. I wanted to use my existing electronics for numbers matching reasons, and the onboard computer, you'll have to resync a new one with VCDS if you have it. You can search what that is if you're unfamiliar. It's a sort of computer diagnostics tool where you can change a lot of the features on your Audi. So I want to use certain parts from the new one and certain parts from the old one. Basically the electronics on the old one, maybe any buttons that are in nicer condition. You can see over here I've already removed some of these buttons, and now let's walk through taking this apart so we could pick and choose what we want to use. So starting off, good idea to put this down on a towel or paper towel or something so as to not scratch it any more than it's already scratched. And we're going to work our way around removing all of these screws. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So every screw on the outside and inside are the same size, which is convenient. Next, this is probably the most difficult part of taking off the faceplate and separating the electronics, is getting every one of these tabs all around. There's 3 on this side, 1 on each side, and 2 on the other side. We basically need to separate them. So you can just slide a little flathead under there in each case. Pull up on it a touch. And then the trick is getting this moved forward so that they don't just snap right back into place. So what's helpful is to take another flathead screwdriver, and once we get one opened up a little bit and using 2 hands pushing back on the plate, we're going to just slide it in to the little space in between. You can see it moves out a touch on the right side, and that'll stop it from going back into place. And then we're going to work our way around each side, doing this one at a time, using 2 hands, pushing out on the plate a little bit, moving our screwdriver if necessary to keep the plate from snapping back into place. So I found what was easy is to put it on one side, get this one, put this in here and just leave it there. And then each additional one, when you stick this in and tab it up, this will just help separate it a little bit more. And now we're going to carefully rotate this to not lose that screwdriver. We've gotten all of these, and we're just going to pop out this last one. Now you can see this whole plate here separates. And it's just connected by this electronics connector connecting one side to the other. Now to get to all of these buttons, we're going to have to remove this circuit board. You can see on the circuit board, there's some Torx screws scattered throughout. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. We're gonna have to remove all 8 of those. And then right here, for the heated seats, you can see what happens when we spin that whole mechanism spins. We're gonna have to just pop those out, and those look like this. So just kind of get your Allen key in there, spin them a little bit, and they'll work their way out pretty easily. All right, so I have all 8 of those removed. So what I find is just kind of sticking this into it, twisting a little bit to the left, and this gets a pretty good grip in there, and just pulling it out, just left and out at the same time with a pretty good grip, the right size, and that will help get that out. Now that that is all removed, we can just lift up on the circuit board, take this and stick it to the side. This is also a good time if you, like most owners, have that little clean spot with the dirty kind of edge around it that you can't get to. This is a great time to clean those screens and have it looking like new. So here's my old one and the new one. I've already removed some of the buttons from the new one, I kind of changed my mind and I'm going to stick those back because I overall like the condition of my new plate better than the old one. So I'm going to put some of those buttons back. Those were buttons I initially wanted to keep and move over. But we can see, for example, here's one of the new buttons. It has a little nick in it versus my button is perfect. So I'm gonna take my button out and put it into my new plate. To take the buttons out, it's pretty easy. We're just gonna take a flathead screwdriver and this back piece separates. So then the main button falls out the front and the back piece can pop right off. So that's the one we're going to remove. It's right here. Get that screwdriver under it. And just kind of pop up and it'll pop right off. So there's that. Lift up, there's the button. Now, it's just as easy to stick it back in. We're just gonna put this in its slot, let it sit in there, holds it in place, flip it over, and then take this piece and this piece is going to pop right back on. There we go. So in that case, we just went from this button with this little nick to this one, perfectly clean. All right, so I kind of pick and chose which buttons I want to keep. This is my old one now, so it's my old plate. I left some of the worn buttons like these. I swapped out my button here, was a little bit nicer, so I swapped it out with the one that was on it. These parts are getting harder and harder to find, so if you see one for sale and maybe some buttons are nicer than yours, some aren't, this should enable you to pick and choose. And you know, it's not perfect. It's a little nick here, a little nick right here. But for the most part, it's as good as you're going to get 15 years later with these B7 Audis. All right, now reassembly. First off, you can see I cleaned those screens. Here's what the old ones look like, because you can't really get to the edges. So definitely do that while it's apart. And we're gonna take our little plastic piece for the heated seat and slide it back in there. So when you slide that in, you can check and make sure that's spinning when you spin the heated seat, which it is. I find it's easy to take your socket and put this right on your socket, push it in, twist it a bit, and it'll, with a little bit of pressure, and it'll eventually just kind of lock itself into place. And then, you know, don't push it too hard. It'll find itself just spinning it, and then push in at the very end to get it to, you'll hear an audible click and it'll stay in there. So we're gonna have to screw our circuit board back on. There's where our 8 screws go. Just kind of got them all started there. You can get them started by hand. And then just work them back in, all 8 of them. Nice and snug. Definitely don't over tighten these. You know, just kind of where they stop. There's really no reason to over tighten. So now, just like how we took it apart, we're gonna line all these tabs up all around. Make sure they're lined up and going into their locations. Once they're lined up, you'll hear those clicks. I just had several of them click prior to starting filming. double check all of them. Looks like we're good here. And now we've just got to start on those 4 screws. And once we have those 4 screws worked back in, we're good to go. And here's a final video showing after I took it apart again and then Sharpied those edges. You really can't tell. The Sharpie did a fantastic job. So last off, we're just going to take this, slide it back into its slot in the car, reconnect those connections, put the head unit back in. The head unit will just slide in and click in. You'll hear some audible clicks, and you're good to go with a much more renewed looking B7 climate control panel. If you liked what you saw, please remember to like and subscribe. Have lots of motorsports footage we're putting out, cars, boats, bikes. Should have lots of how-tos on various different cars, American, Japanese, German, Audis, Chevys, motorcycles, Ducatis, boats, racing footage, rally racing, offshore racing, you name it, the channel's going to be following all of this. And thanks for watching.